Hello everybody out there in the bookverse, it's Stephanie, and today I am back with a little bit of a late May wrap up, but we're still gonna do it anyways because I want to talk about some of these books. If you're new to my channel, hey, welcome. Thank you so much for watching my videos. If you'd like to see more from me, definitely hit the subscribe button down below and the bell icon so you'll be notified when I post new content. But let's jump into the books and let's start with my one and only DNF of the month. That was Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. This book was the Top Shelf Society book club pick for the month of May, I believe it was. And it actually probably was the month of April, and I just read it in May. I'm not positive. But I didn't really love it. I couldn't get into it. This book follows an AI who was made to be a friend or companion to a child, and it follows her experience, being in the store and then being picked and going home and all that. And I just didn't love it. I found it pretty boring. The world building was pretty much non-existent. I thought we would learn a little bit more about the different technologies and about the different things going on in this world, and we really didn't at all. This is an extremely character-focused book, so it just wasn't one that I could get into, and I found myself really falling into a reading slump reading this book, so I decided to DNF it. But this book is very well loved. It won the Nobel Prize in Literature, so don't let the fact that I didn't enjoy it scare you off from reading it, because a lot of people really love this book. It just really was not for me. The next two books that I'm going to talk about were the two graphic novels that I read for the month, and that was Descender Volumes 4 and 5. This is a graphic novel series that follows a young AI who has a coding that is supposed to help the humans to conquer these big AIs called harvesters who came and destroyed a bunch of the world and a bunch of the people, and they are all hunting this little guy now. I really am enjoying this series. I think it's very well done. I think the characters in it are interesting. I like the artwork and the style of it, and I think it's just very fast-paced and easy to get into and to get invested in, and so that's one of the reasons why I kind of pick it up in between some of my bigger high fantasy books, because it's a nice little palette cleanser and it makes me feel like I'm accomplishing things by getting through books. So I really enjoy the series, and I am looking forward to finishing it probably this month. Next book I'm going to talk about is one that I read for a read-along that is hosted by Jashana. I'll link her channel down below, and that is Age of Legend by Michael J. Sullivan. This series is a very interesting series that I have mentioned so many times on my channel. I feel like I'm a broken record at this point, but it's a primitive high fantasy series where these people are just learning things like how to invent the wheel and pottery and those types of things. And there are very classic high fantasy creatures like elves and dwarves and giants and those types of things. I really love it. I love the character work in here. I love that this series is so easy to read, so easy to get through. I feel like I fly through every one of these books, and this book was no exception. I really enjoyed it. There were some significant time jumps that happened. First one at the beginning, and then another one happened relatively close to the beginning as well. But I think they were well done. I think that they were necessary, so you didn't kind of have to sit through the slog of a long military campaign. And I loved the different mythology, I guess, that you're getting into in this book. I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm really excited to continue. The next book I'm going to talk about was also for a read-along that I am co-hosting with Megan over at Megan's Reading Revelations and a few other friends that are involved as well. And that is Ship of Destiny by Robin Hobb. This is the third and final book in her Live Ship Traders trilogy, which is set in her realm of the Elderlings, which has a lot of books in it. So this book was the finale to the trilogy, so I can't talk a whole ton about it, but this series follows these people who make what are called live ships. So once 3 generations of a family dies on the decks of the ship, then the ship comes to life, and it has a personality, it can talk, it can interact, and it can affect the ship to make it better for sailing and things like that. I've really enjoyed this series so much. I think I like it better than her Farseer trilogy, which is the trilogy I would recommend reading before this one. I know they say you can read either one first, but I would recommend reading the Farseer trilogy before the Live Ship Traders trilogy. I think there are things in here that would spoil Farseer for you, but I love this series so much. Even though there were so many characters in it that absolutely drove me nuts that I didn't love, I overall just was in love with this series, the world, the characters I loved and didn't love. I think they were all just so well done. That's something that I think Robin Hobb does an exceptional job at, is character development and character arcs. Some of the characters that I absolutely despised at the beginning of this series, I came to really kind of respect and grudgingly like towards the end of this series. And I loved seeing the connections along the way. Robin Hobb does a great job of leaving tidbits in the beginning that become extremely important in the end, and also connecting her different series. Seeing the things in Farseer that came to play in here, I absolutely loved it. It was so great. I had some issues with some of the character arcs that happened and some of the choices that different characters made. I thought some of them were out of character for what they would have done, and maybe they weren't necessarily completely out of character, but they were things that I was very disappointed that that was the choice that this person or ship, either way, decided to go with. I think that the magic and the different creatures that come into play in this one were really well done and very fun to follow. I'm really looking forward to reading the Tawny Man trilogy next, which we are actually going to be doing a read along of as well, but I think we're going to hold off and start that in August, so kind of, or July. July. So we're going to give ourselves a break in June and so start up again in July. But I really love Robin Hobb's writing. I think she's phenomenal, and I'm super excited to continue on in her realm of the Elderlings. The next book I'm going to talk about is a reread, so I already know my feelings on it, but that is The Wall of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in his Mistborn trilogy, and I loved it. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone who's watched my channel that I absolutely love Brandon Sanderson, and especially his Mistborn trilogy. This series is essentially set up on the premise of what if the Dark Lord won? And so there's this dark ruler who is ruling their land. There's ash falling from the sky. These people live in these terrible situations. They're slaves. They can't get out of it. And then there's this crew who gets together and decides they're going to pull off the heist of a lifetime and steal the final empire from this dark ruler man. And it's really fun, really entertaining. I absolutely love the characters in this. The crew members are perfect. I loved all of them. I think they were so well done. The way that they fit together was great, and it was phenomenal. This book, I think, is very appealing to different people depending on what you like in your fantasy novels. If you love politics and trying to navigate those political issues that arise after a rebellion, this is one that I think you would absolutely love. It's so good. It's really well done, seeing the different pitfalls that people fall into and how you kind of have these dreams and ideas of what it's going to be, and then when you actually have to enforce these laws and deal with other people and their opinions, things tend to become more complicated than you saw. Also, the magic system in this one definitely expands and you start getting more into the world, the magic, the mythology, and those types of things. I loved this book so much. I actually think this is the only one of this series that made me cry. I know most people cry at The Hero of Ages, but I didn't. This is the one that the first time reading it, I cried. And I just love this book so much. It's so well done. It's such a great middle book. It doesn't suffer from middle book syndrome at all. I think the pacing is well done, and I really love the new characters that we're getting more invested in and more information on. This is such a great series. Highly recommend it. If you didn't know already, I would highly recommend Mistborn. The next book that I read I also really loved, and that is Master of Sorrows by Justin T. Call. This is the first book in his, I think it's the Silent Gods trilogy. I don't see it. Well, that's what I think it's called, so that's what we're going with. If it's wrong, I'll put a little blurb up here saying that I was wrong. But this book essentially is set in a world that has this very brutal religious beliefs that if you are deformed in any way or if you have magic, then you are evil and you need to be killed. This world was originally created by these 3 sibling gods, and then they had a falling out, which caused so much issue and conflict between the people of this world, and there's been wars, and there is prophecies, and there's magic, and it's just so much fun. It also has the wise mentor trope, which I absolutely love, and it has the school setting trope, which I also absolutely love, and it has the chosen one trope, which I love. So many of the tropes that I love are in this book, and I really enjoyed my time with it. I think that there were some things that while reading it, you could feel that it was a debut novel because they weren't as well developed, or they were kind of abrupt, or they were very obvious twists and things like that. But overall, this was so good. I flew through this book. I was so invested in it. I had to know what happened. I think the pacing was really well done in this book. That was something that I enjoyed a lot. I think keeping the reader invested in this story is something this book did really well as well, and I just can't wait to learn more about this world. We're going to expand a lot more in the second book, I think, and I already have it, and I am hoping to be able to read it this month. So yeah. Also, the cover is just stunning. I mean, come on, this thing is gorgeous, and I absolutely love it. And the last book on my list of books that I read in May is Iron Gold by Pierce Brown. I read this as part of the read-along that Alan over at the Library of Alexandria is hosting called Feb Rising. This is kind of the 4th book in the Red Rising series. There's the original trilogy, which completes a full story arc, and this is a story that is set 10 years after that completion. So you are totally able to read the first 3 books as a trilogy and stop there, and that's fine. You're going to get the complete story. This is just kind of continuing on after everything that happened in those first 3 books. So I can't necessarily talk too much about it because it would be major spoilers for the original trilogy, but this is an adult sci-fi series that's set in a world where golds rule and are the most powerful, and they are actually like gold. Like the people are gold, and then there are different colors based on your rank in this society, down to the reds, who are the lowest. And our main character, Darrow, is a red. He's a miner, and then he suffers this major traumatic event in his life, and he becomes part of this movement that brings things to light, that shows that things are not necessarily what he thought they were. This book definitely expands a lot on the world. The original trilogy is told in first person from Darrow's perspective, and this one we branch out and we actually have 4 different perspectives that we follow in here, if I'm not mistaken. And while I did enjoy the fact that we got multiple POVs, that's something that I really do actually like in books, because I feel like it just really gets you a lot more of experiencing the world. I didn't necessarily like all the POVs. I didn't really like any of the other characters that we followed in it, unfortunately. They weren't a lot of fun. They weren't, like, just the characters themselves, their personalities, and the decisions they make were very frustrating to me, and I didn't love that. I think that 2 of our POVs that we follow were kind of unnecessary, and we didn't necessarily even need them in the story at all. Potentially. I think that one of the POVs, the new ones, was so great, even though I didn't like the character. I love that POV. It was probably my favorite part of it, just because of where we were in the world and the people that were around this character and the different information we were getting through that. I really enjoyed that so much. But overall, I think the writing improved in this. I think the world building improved in this. I just think that it was kind of frustrating at times, and I feel like some of the things that happened in here we didn't necessarily need. So yeah, overall, it was a really good book. I had a lot of fun reading it, and I think that the new information that we were given was awesome, but I just feel like it was probably my least favorite of the series so far. But we do have a lot of potential moving forward, and maybe if we start switching up the POVs in the next book and get some other people in here that I'd be more interested in, then that would be awesome. I like that he's branching out and doing that and getting different POVs in here. So this was a lot of fun. It was very fast paced. We had a lot going on, and there was a lot of strategy and like different covert missions going on and things like that, which of course you get a lot in his Red Rising trilogy. So definitely was fun and fast-paced and really enjoyable. I liked it a lot. I want to continue on with the series, but gosh, the next book is so long and I just don't know if I will be able to fit it in time for the live show, but I'm gonna try. And those are the books that I read in May. I actually started off quite slow and I read like no books for the first half of the month, and then I crammed in probably at least half of these books into the last week of May. It was crazy. I don't know why I decided to do it that way. I guess I just like wanted to torture myself, but I still loved so many of the books that I read this month. I think it was a really good reading month, and it's a good like propellant into June, which is a readathon month. So yeah, I had so much fun with so many of these books. Let me know down in the comments if you've read any of them, what you think, if you loved any of these books, if you have any suggestions for me based on what I loved. And as always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more from me, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.